would never. I'm not known to do such things. Mike knows that.
Never heard you sing in my life.
Some people call me the songbird of my generation.
Is that a quote from a movie?
It is a quote from a movie. How do you not know this movie?
Okay, wait, let me think for a second.
Come on.
Fuck. Is it Will Ferrell?
Yeah.
Oh, what's the movie, though?
That's problematic. We've got to start. We got to start.
All right, you can tell me on air.
Nobody type into chat. If you heard that intro into this, do not let Neil know what show
I'm not
what
reading
movie
chat
that's
right now.
from. God, well then that's great. You're never going to know. You have to think of it yourself. Welcome everybody to the MLB Live Before Lock show presented by Oddshopper. I'm Eric Lindquist. Sorry about that little aside on the front end, but it's funny because Neil does not know what quote I'm the songbird of my generation, what movie that is from, and that's hilarious to me, but you know what? It's all right. He's a lovely human being. My fellow Timberwolves fan, he was in attendance on Saturday, making sure we got across the finish line. No blowing of 26-point leads. Those all are things that matter to me more. But you know what? I know what matters to you most is that he's good at DFS. At PlayerQ DFS on the Twitters, host of the High Stakes podcast here at Awesemo. Neil, how you doing, my dude?
I'm doing well. Unfortunately, I was also at the Timberwolves game on Thursday when I got to witness the most depressing collapse in the history of sports. Yeah, that was not fun.
We don't have to talk about that.
Overall, 2-2, Timberwolves in 6. I'll take it.
No kidding. Timberwolves in 7. I mean, if they have to go to Memphis to do it, I don't really care.
Yeah, that's fine.
Any winning in Minnesota, the fact that we've won 2 games already kind of feels like a win. I'm not going to lie to you. I know that that's something that losers say where it's like, oh, well, I won twice. Well, guess what? If you win 2 GPPs in DFS, you're probably up for the year. You know what I mean? So we'll take wins whenever we can get them.
Also, we're Minnesota sports fans. So yes, we have a long history of losing.
We were talking a little bit for the show. You know, my parents, I grew up, I'm from Sioux Falls, and my trips, the things I always wanted to do was drive up to Minneapolis to go to Twins, Vikings, Timberwolves, sometimes occasionally Minnesota Wild games. Got into that more in college and went up with a bunch of buddies to the Excel Energy Center. But
St. Paul, baby.
St. Paul, Minnesota, lovely place. The Twin Cities, for those who don't know, just like Dallas, Fort Worth, you have Fort Wayne, Fort Worth. I got it right the first time. Yeah, don't worry about it. But Minneapolis, St. Paul, it's beautiful stuff. One of the great logos. I have a T-shirt I wear all the time. For the Minnesota Twins having the SP, like you'll see it sometime. I'll wear it here, but I guess we should talk baseball, shouldn't we? And probably not NBA because we got 2 shows that are going to do that later.
I suppose. Let's talk some
and
baseball.
The Timberwolves don't play today. Who gives a shit?
Right.
Let's talk some baseball. We got 7 games on the DK slate. We've got 5 on the FanDuel slate, and there's a $44 queue I might want to jump into on FanDuel. So I wasn't actually going to play over there, and now I'm like, well, I'm done working here at 2:00 my time. I should definitely be firing it up, but looking forward to this slate. Anything stick out to you before we dive in?
A lot of pretty good pitchers. So there's not really any stacks that jump out as like the clear best stacks. It's just a pretty solid pitching slate overall. So a lot of good pitching options, and I'll be spreading out my stacks. I'm not going to be too concentrated on any one stack, I think. I think that I know I'll probably be doing 5-man stacks on DraftKings, 4-man stacks for my primary stacks on FanDuel. Just trying to find the one stack that somehow escapes the starting pitchers and gets there ultimately.
Mm-hmm. I will say it's interesting to me building on FanDuel today, specifically because how do you 4-3-1, 4-4 with Scherzer? It's pretty tough. You have some really brutal spots. You end up on a lot of the same 2,500 and under guys. We'll see kind of what you think about some of those lineups here as we go along. But on DK, man, you definitely have great pitching, especially because of this very first game. Let's dive in. We've got San Francisco Giants, 2.9 implied runs at Milwaukee, 4.1 implied runs for them on that side. Sammy Long isn't going to pitch long enough. I made a bad joke about how he's not going to pitch long enough. Nobody laughed on the first show, so it is what it is. But Corbin Burns sure as shit is. He is very good at throwing baseballs. Phenomenal pitcher. Once again, just in line with his Cy Young type stuff, 31% K percentage, 3.07 expected ERA with a 0.79 whip. He is so good. He is so impossible for me to get away from on DraftKings. Neil, anything to add to Corbin Burns?
Yeah, so he's negative leverage in the top pitchers. So I watched your show earlier with Terry, or at least most of it. I don't know if I finished it. But I heard him say that he really likes Corbin Burns. He has no issue getting to all the Corbin Burns. And so I host a show with Terry on Tuesdays, and he said something similar about maybe it was actually Corbin Burns again on our show. Whoever it was, he said he didn't care how much he loved the pitcher, loved the spot, he would get to him, and then the pitcher went completely off. He was totally right about it. So that is the way that Terry plays. I think that's the way that you play a little bit more. So the way I play is a slightly different style. So I rely more on the tools. I rely more on the top stacks tool, the top pitchers tool. If it tells me that a player is over-owned relative to their odds of being a top 2 pitcher, I just rely on that. I trust the tool. So I'm going to be underweight on Corbin Burns, even though he is the likeliest pitcher to be one of the top 2 pitchers on the slate, coming in at 34.5%. I understand it. I understand why Terry doesn't mind us getting to all of the Corbin Burns. I understand why you are totally fine doing that. And it makes sense. He has the greatest odds on the slate, but just the way that I play, I am focused more on finding leverage and, going under the field on players who are overowned and over the field on players who are underowned. And in this case, it looks like Corbin Burns is a little bit overowned. I'm not going to be like fading Corbin Burns completely, but I imagine I'm going to be coming in under that 45.7% projected ownership just because that's the style of DFS that I play.
I have a couple questions because I totally get what you're saying. Do you have any exceptions in terms of certain pitchers that are of a certain quality in certain matchups where you will still go overweight regardless of negative leverage?
Yeah, so there are definitely spots when I don't completely go with the tools.
Okay.
I go with the tools more so in baseball than other sports, but even within baseball, yes, there are cases where I'm going to go over the field in spots where the tools say that they're overowned. So like it does happen sometimes. Let's see. Kyle Gibson could be a place where I would do that today, just because I assume the tool. So they're saying he's overowned at 25.3%. Yep. He's a top 2 pitcher, 12.3% of the time, top 2 value, 17.3% of the time. He's a case where he has shown so much better stuff towards the end of last year, the beginning of this year, that there is some chance that he's just a lot better than we think he is, and that the tools don't completely account for that yet, because I'm sure they, it's kind of a rolling basis. They're catching up, seeing the new stuff is factoring in, but not like fully believing it yet. So I might say, you know what, I think that it's real. Maybe I'll go over the field on someone like Kyle Gibson. If I do, if I crunch on Fantasy Cruncher and I get more than the field on Kyle Gibson, I can live with that. Jose Barrios, another example here. So he's coming in at 33% ownership. He's only a top 2 pitcher 17.9% of the time, but he's a top 2 value 39.6% of the time. So top 2 value is actually positive leverage relative to his ownership. You might be able to pair him up with someone like a Corbin Burns or a Max Scherzer and still get decent stacks. So I might allow it just because he's good enough value that he'll allow you to get to better stacks. So yeah, there are exceptions. I'm not completely just doing exactly what the tools say all the time. I trust them more than I trust myself in general. So with someone like Corbin Burns, I think we have a large sample size. We kind of know who he is. We know who the Giants are. And I think, I just trust that, the odds that he is a top 2 pitcher are slightly lower than his ownership in this place. So I'm just going to be just a little bit under the field.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I probably spend more time in lineup rewind because of baseball than any other thing. It's a Fantasy Cruncher add-on that you can get here at Awesemo. You want to sign up for that. I'll throw this in here too on the front end while we're doing this. We have 45 minutes. I did a show earlier, so I'm so happy to talk strategy, especially with one of the top players in the world being you. I see 2 very different ways of thinking when it comes to certain elite pitchers. And one of the things that was fascinating to me yesterday, Larry Otto, the guy who ended up finishing first, he's an absolute stud in DFS. Sean's on, Ship My Money, a number of guys massively overweight to Garrett Cole at 34.3%. We had him projected for higher ownership than that, 50% in that $15. He ended up coming in around 80% in Ship My Money's lineup, 60% Sean's on, one of our studs here in house, and Larry Otto, 85%. I find that very fascinating just in terms of top pitchers. And then one guy that, again, he's been here before. Bro. He does a lot of the write-ups on Twitter. You will see him there. Awesemo himself. There are times where I will see them go massively overweight on certain guys like Corbin Burns or things of that nature, just because of how much better they are relative to other pitchers on the slate. Now, I do think because of the existence of Max Scherzer, the existence of Shane Bieber, and even I will put an argument up for Walker Buehler in certain capacity, to a certain extent, where you have K rates over the course of a couple years of sample size that are kind of comparable. I think it's probably more inclined to be a little bit lighter on Corbin Burnes today than most other days that Corbin Burnes exists. But it's proved so profitable for me to just jam Corbin Burnes over the last year and a half. It's something I've talked about with Greg Ehrenberg, where it's almost like there's certain guys with 30+% K percentages where, yeah, there's going to be times where you're going to have a 2 or 3 point difference where somebody just has a ceiling beyond ceiling game to beat Corbin Burnes, but his floor, it just allows for you at 10-2. It's not super cost prohibitive for me to get completely different with my stacks, to find different ways like that, to just kind of mix it in. So I totally get your line of thinking. I totally understand. We have the best tools in the entire industry. I tend to overvalue a little bit of the top stacks tool because I just think it's so fantastic. I think the top stacks tool is so valuable. And it's also 9 lineup spots that you're filling out on DraftKings, 1 at SP2, and then 8 other players in the positions that kind of round out the lineup. So for me, I'm more inclined to go overweight on a guy like Corbin Burnes, but I totally see where you're coming from. Anything else you want to add to the conversation?
Yeah, so I will just say that that is a really good point, and there are spots where you can go overweight. I've said before in shows that I tend to get different more so with stacks than pitchers. So I look at the top pitchers tool more so to get an idea of where I'm going to set my cutoff, and oftentimes I won't even do individual exposure caps on my pitchers. So in this case, I think I look at Corbin Burnes' top 2 pitchers odds of 34.5%, ownership of 45.7. So I can see same with Max Scherzer, ownership 48.2%, top 2 pitcher odds 31.5. I'll probably just set my cap at 40%, and I'll get over on some of the other pitchers below that as well, just by whatever Fantasy Cruncher gives me. So I do allow Fantasy Cruncher to put me overweight on some pitchers that are negative leverage. And it is a good point that you make. So those players are willing to go way overweight on a great pitcher. And I think that makes sense. And that's what you do as well. And that's what Terry does. You're right that you don't always necessarily need him to be a top 2 pitcher. If you have 100% Corbin Burnes and he ends up being the 3rd best pitcher on the slate, that doesn't prohibit you from winning if you pick the right stacks to go with him. So there is some merit, to that argument that you don't necessarily need a top 2 pitcher, even for the most expensive player on the slate, just because if he's close enough to the other pitchers and you find the right stacks, it works out. So yeah, I think that's a really good point that you don't necessarily need to completely always rely on the tools, and in particular the top pitchers tool. I'm more likely to go away from the top pitchers tool than the top stacks tool, I think.
Yeah. I mean, even just looking yesterday, the Colts didn't have over 40% of anybody. Steve Buzzard, in-house here, one of the top players in the world. So again, there's different ways to go about skinning a cat. Also, I feel like MLB is so fluid in terms of strategy. I feel like I've revamped my strategy 48,000 times over the last 7 years of playing MLB DFS, where it's like, 5 threes, 5 twos, 5s uninhibited, playing 5-mans everywhere. Now I'm jamming pitchers. Now I'm playing, 33% cap on every pitcher. Now I'm changing this. It's always in flux, but I generally just tried to do things different than everybody else is doing them. And so for me, that's always kind of the journey.
Yeah, and I'm the same way. I think that you need to look at every individual slate individually. You need to look at each slate individually. So in this case, on this slate today, I think that I'm going to cap my pitchers at about 40%. But yes, there are other days where it totally makes sense to go overweight on the top pitchers. And every day you just you look at the slate as a whole, you look at how many good pitchers there are, how many stacks are in great spots, and you kind of got to shape things according to each day's slate.
Yeah. A couple of things. Yeah. Stadio Wizzy, do you set maximum caps on hitters? Generally, it'll kind of organically happen just because I'm putting in the individual stacks into Fantasy Cruncher, and then I'm kind of building it out from there. But then for the most part, I'm not going crazy with it. It's probably the quickest way to just put like a 33 or 35% cap on hitters or something like that. Or as he just alluded to, Neil over there, 40% cap on pitchers today for him. I think stuff like that can be quick and easy. Sometimes it just has a lot of utility, sometimes less so. Anything to add to that?
Yeah, so I generally do set a cap on hitters. So like today, I think I'll probably set a 30% cap. On a larger slate, if there was another game or two, I might set it at 20%. Just because even though I do stacks, obviously, and I set exposure caps on my stacks, I usually do like 5-2 stacks, 4-3 stacks, or I often do where I still allow one-offs, and I don't want to get like 50% of Mike Trout as a one-off or something like that. So I do set stacks, and that also having those caps allows you to get to different hitters within your stacks too. So I think there is some merit to setting cap, and probably today, like I said, maybe it'll be 40% on pitchers, 30% on batters. I'm not entirely sure, but something along those lines.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that was a great discussion. Good jumping off point. Corbin Burns. I definitely have I have interest big time. There's no doubt about it. I believe the best pitcher in baseball and has been for a year and a half. My boy Dylan Cease, he's on the rise. He's on the rise. But Corbin Burns, as it stands right now. Any San Francisco bats for you then?
Yeah, so as I said, top stacks tool, I definitely rely on even more so than the top pitchers tool. San Francisco stack projected for 1.1% ownership, 3.4% chance of being the top stack, 4.4% chance of being the top value stack. So I will want to be over the field on that. I'm not going to go, crazy. I'm not going to play 10% plus of San Francisco bats, but I could see myself getting to 7%. I might set my exposure max at 7 and try to get at least a little bit above that 3% number. Try to get at least 4 or 5%.
Yeah, I'll probably have a share or two of Jock. Double dong yesterday, just crazy lefty power, Dodgers ace to now. Let's ride. Ryan Nelson, $1.99. Need Twins in the playoffs. More Minnesota games. Yeah, we're the best fans, period. And we also don't throw trash on the field.
Yeah, I feel like you just subtweeted somebody.
No, I'm just, this has been a recurring thing for me for 2 days. Just, be a fan. Don't be an asshole. That's pretty simple. On the other side of this game, this is where it gets really interesting because Milwaukee, I feel like it's a team I just never really get to the way that the field does. And it looks like they're the most negatively leveraged team. Again, I understand that in a bullpen game scenario, you might be like, oh, well, San Francisco, it doesn't look like they have anybody that can really be a massive long reliever here in this spot. Somebody said Jake Junis they ended up bringing back, but then he pitched 3 days ago, so I doubt he can really pitch that far. What are you doing with Milwaukee bats, the most negatively leveraged stack on DK?
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like they may have been in my dummy lineup because I really, Milwaukee, the game is in Milwaukee, so it's a decent spot for them. I am inclined to get to Milwaukee. Then I look at the top stacks tool, and as you said, they are the most negatively leveraged. So I'm going to be under the field for sure, coming in at 11.5% ownership. They're the top stack 5.8% of the time, top value 11.9% of the time. I'll come in under that 11.5% ownership share, maybe somewhere between 6 and 10% of Milwaukee. I really like the bats. It's kind of hard to know what to do with them just because this is going to be a bullpen game. So I think they're Sammy Long, I believe, is a lefty, and then they have a bunch of righties in the bullpen. Yep. So it's a little bit of a tough spot to know who you want to play. But yeah, I think it makes some sense to get to some Milwaukee bets. If you just go on the top stacks tool, you might be inclined to full fade them. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that on a slate with 14 teams. You could full fade Milwaukee. That's not something I'm going to do. I'm still going to try to get to maybe 6 to 10%.
I'm worried about Mike Brousseau getting pinch hit for. He's got a crazy righty lefty splits. So, I mean, Sammy Long, if he gets to face him, yay. If he doesn't, I have worries about that later on in the game. They have Rowdy Tellez. They have guys that can come in there. So just be on the lookout for that. He's going to be a guy I'm lower on just because of that, even though I generally like to play him against lefties, but batting eighth, just some uncertainty that exists there. Let's keep it moving. Colorado, Phillies. We got Kyle Freeland versus Kyle Gibson, and Kyle Freeland in Coors Field. You got to keep the ball down. You got to keep a ground ball rate there. Well, now he's going into Philadelphia, which is still a hitter's park, but not nearly as much so as Coors Field. Can he keep the ball down against this Phillies team? I don't know, but I'm willing to find out with Phillies bats when they're pretty much flat leverage that exists there. I'm definitely going to have some of them, but you don't have any Kyle Freeland interest, do you?
I mean, you know that I do. He's got 1% projected ownership. He's a top 2 pitcher 4.8% of the time, top 2 value 20.8% of the time. Not even pitching in Coors today, so slight ballpark upgrade for him. And he is the cheapest pitcher on the slate, so he allows you to get to some stacks, to some lineups that nobody else on the slate does. There are some great values on the slate, so you look at, obviously, Jose Berrios looks solid. Dane Dunning, there are guys that you want to play that are almost as cheap as Kyle Freeland, but just being the cheapest pitcher on the slate, he allows you to get to some spots that nobody else does. It's disgusting. You don't want to watch the game with Kyle Freeland in there, but yeah, he's cheap enough that you don't need a ton from him to necessarily have him become optimal. So I'm going to get above that 1% number on Kyle Freeland. Mostly, I'm going to try to get a little bit above that 1% number on Kyle Freeland, despite how gross it is.
And disclaimer, he's building 150. I'm building 150. So when we're talking about getting over on Kyle Freeland, you're talking about getting like 5% or something. It's not going to be like a 10 or 20% share. Now, This guy, Kyle Gibson, is one of the value du jour we alerted to earlier, 6,800 on DK. Once again, this game is only available on DK, so we'll get into the 5-gamer FD slate as well as we go along talking about the rest of these games. But Kyle Gibson, 6,800 on DraftKings. He's coming in over owned, 25.3% ownership, just 12.3% top two pitcher percentage. But we're looking for some value here in this mid-range, and I think he's probably the safest option going up against Colorado outside of Coors Field. Everybody else, I think, either has some kind of uncertainty or has a really, really low K rate. I'm looking at you, Framber Valdez. How are you feeling about Kyle Gibson on this slate?
Yeah, so as I alluded to earlier, this is a spot where 25.3% ownership. Top pitchers 2 only shows him a top 2 pitcher 12.3% of the time, top 2 value 17.3% of the time. But I kind of think those numbers are fragile in this case, just because he has been so much better recently. There is some chance that he is a lot better than he has been since, the second half of last year. So I have some interest in Kyle Gibson. I'm not gonna force myself to go underweight to Kyle Gibson. I'll put it that way. I wouldn't mind getting to that 25.3% that the field is at or above that.
All right. Well, let's jump on talk about bats here on this side. I think I will have a little bit of Colorado bats. I don't think that it's completely insane, especially if Blackman can show anything here. They are the most positively leveraged team to get to in the boom bust tool. 1.2% ownership share, and they just have a better lineup at the top than they had last year. Connor Joe coming on strong his second year. Charlie Blackman, Chris Bryant, CJ Crone. I love CJ Crone. I'm just upset he didn't do what I needed him to last year. Now it's starting to show up. Randall Grichuk, Ryan McMahon has power. Elias Diaz has power. Brendan Rodgers and Jose Iglesias don't, but whatever. I'm okay stacking up against Kyle Gibson, more so than this morning. How about you?
Yeah, I feel the same way. They are, as you said, the top leveraged team stack on the slate. 1.2% projected ownership at 6.8% top stack odds. You really like that. I mean, 6.8 isn't even that low. A lot of times you can find teams that are the top stack on the slate that are just projected for 1% ownership and they have 3% top stack odds, and you can be the highest on the slate. 6.8 is, it's a pretty solid number. So I definitely want to be above the weight on Colorado. I'll probably try to get to 7 or 8%.
All right. Everybody smash the like button as we jump over to the Philly side. We have over 300 of you guys hanging out here already, talking baseball at 1:23 out here on the West Coast, 4:23 on the East Coast. If you're just getting off work, tuning in, we appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Smash that like button and subscribe button. If not for me, from my Minnesota brethren over there, Neil Orfield, one of the top players in the industry. You'll want to listen to the things that he says and listen to him about the Phillies here. Flat leverage that exists here on this team, and they have power. Everybody on this entire team smashes the baseball. Even JT Realmuto, 39.5% hard hit percentage for a catcher. Sign me up. One of the best hitting catchers that exists. Very fast, get on base. Lots of things that exist in this lineup that I want to get to. Specific shout out for Alec Boehm if he gets a bad rap. He is a great hitter. But how do you feel about the Philadelphia Phillies today?
Yeah, as you said, they're a fairly neutral play, slightly positive leverage. I always like the Phillies. And in Philadelphia, it's a pretty solid place for them to hit. So even though it's not in Colorado, I don't mind that. It's a solid enough spot. Great hitters. I wouldn't mind being at or slightly above the field. Project for 11.4% ownership. Get yourself some Phillies in your lineups.
Jeff Williams, $4.99. We appreciate you. Thank you for the super chats, everybody. High dollar single entry GPP, Neil. He goes, would you go Gibson and Phillies bats or Max and Brewer bats? Can we do Max and anybody else? Or is that, can I click that button? But I understand what you're getting at. Need some of those value bats. But Neil, are you feeling Gibson and Phillies bats or Max and Brewers bats?
Probably Gibson. Is this a FanDuel question?
DraftKings, because this game isn't on FanDuel.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I think I'd probably go Gibson and do you say Phillies bats?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
That's the way that I would lean.
All right. That's where I would lean too.
I think they're just because the
stack. The stack is the reason that I'm picking that one. Milwaukee, very negatively leveraged. I never know what to do with them, especially I want Yelich circa 2019, circa 2020 to return. That would be a lot of fun for everybody involved. Starting to smoke the baseball, but just get it in the air, my friend. Launch angle. It's a thing. Do it. Yeah, that's the way I look at that. Phillies bats, though, I'm looking at more negative leverage from the Milwaukee side than the Philly side. You have more bats going that direction. So best of luck to you, Jeff Williams. Hopefully that helps. Anything else from this game, Neil, before we jump to the FanDuel and DraftKings slate together?
No, let's move on.
All right, cool. Smash that like button. I already said that, but also check out our Awesemo tools and content. Neil and I allude to them all the time. I think in MLB, they're the sharpest in the industry, and it's not remotely close. Not that our NBA boom bust tool isn't elite, not that our top stacks tool for NFL isn't elite, not that, top drivers tool isn't elite, but I'm telling you the MLB tools are ridiculous. $4.95 for the weekly pass there, but $29.95 for the weekly pass to have everything behind the paywall. Now, that's F1, that's NASCAR, that's MMA, that's PGA, that's everything we have, all the tools and content, projection, ownership projections, top golfers tool for PGA, that's My Streets, lineup builder, so many things. Sign up $29.95 for the week. Stop guessing, start winning, and join us here at Awesemo Plus today. Let's do it, my dude. Boston Red Sox, Toronto Blue Jays. Kind of feel like these teams have played 48 times in the first 3 weeks of the season, but such is life. It's a really good offense on both sides. Decent enough pitchers on both sides, even though I'm a really, really hater of Berrios, but that is just kind of the way I'm always going to be. Boston Red Sox side, Nathan Eovaldi, 29.2% K percentage, up a little bit here, tick up. He's a guy who can give up some hard contact. He also can strike out bats. That is going to make him lower owned than he probably should be on a slate going up against Toronto, and it's going to make Toronto lower owned on that side. How do you feel about Eovaldi on this slate? Because I'm guessing positive leverage.
Yes, I like some Eovaldi on this slate.
There you go.
Only 9.2% projected ownership, but 19.3% chance of being a top two pitcher, 15.1% chance of being a top two value pitcher. I get it. People are being scared away by Toronto, but at some point you just got to trust the number. This is a trust the number spot for me. So his price is right. He's at 8,000. That's a reasonable price for Eovaldi on DraftKings. And even though, I don't love playing pitchers against Toronto either, especially it's not like he's Corbin Burns. It's not like he's one of the best pitchers in the game, but he's a very good pitcher. So in this case, I am just going to trust the numbers, and 19.3% top two pitcher odds on this slate seems about right. If he's only going to come at 9.2% ownership, give me some Eovaldi.
Yeah, even if he regresses to 2021, 2022 form, to 2020 form, he was 26.1% and 25.5% K percentage in those seasons. He stands out to me. 29.2% K percentage in the early going of the season. I think I have to be overweight to that number, definitely, especially if he's going to be the fourth most possible guy to land on in the top two pitchers percentage. That's just too good to pass up. Third on the FanDuel slate, which I find very surprising, 8,200. I think if you're going into that mid 8Ks, that's the guy you land on. Are you feeling the same way?
Yeah, probably. So let me look at FanDuel real quick.
I guess here's the right way of putting it. Would you rather roster a Berrios at 7,800 who's garnering 20% ownership, or an Eovaldi who's garnering 10?
Yeah, I go to Eovaldi too. I'm with you 100% on Eovaldi being the play there.
And all right, now we jump over to Berrios, who I've been doing these shows for a year and a half now. And I feel like at the very beginning of last season pre-trade, I just couldn't do anything but talk bad about Berrios. And I feel bad about it because I've always wanted to like this guy. And we've seen some massive upside games from him. There were times where he would just have, 9 hitting complete game shutouts with 10 Ks. And you're like, where in the world did that come from? And the K percentage last year, career high 26.1% K percentage. I think the AL East, actually, he will see a little bit of a slight uptick. Yes, there's a lot of guys who hit the ball very hard in this division, but also there's some strikeouts to be had. I think that's going to be kind of in line with what we're looking at. It's been a little bit lower this season, 18.6% K percentage through those 3 starts, 7.72 expected ERA, but now he's cheap. You get hit up early in the season, you become cheap. Is he cheap enough where you still want to get to shares of him despite the negative leverage, Neil?
Yeah, I definitely am going to get some shares of Jose Berrios. As I said earlier, 33% ownership and only 17.9% top two pitcher odds, as you mentioned, but also a 39.6% chance of being a top two value. So this is just a spot where he's cheap enough relative to his upside that I think that it makes a lot of sense to get to Jose Berrios. I mean, he might give up 4 runs in 5 innings, but also get 8 strikeouts, and that's going to be good enough probably at 5,500. So and I don't think that's a crazy outcome for Jose Berrios. So I would definitely sign up for some Jose Berrios at 5,500. I don't know exactly how much I'm going to end up with if I set my cap at 40%. I might get up to 40%. I wouldn't actually. I can tell you what it looks like right now on my crunch of 500 that I ran. I ended up with. Hang on 1 second. Yeah, he's coming in at 40%. So that's just based on his medium projection though. So based on his medium projection, I'm getting to a lot of Jose Berrios. Yeah. For this. Yeah, exactly. He's hitting my 40% exposure cap for pitchers. So Yeah, I'm going to have some interest in Jose Barrios. I don't love the negative leverage. I don't love that he is 33% owned. I might go in and set a manual cap at like 30% of Jose Barrios, just because do I really want 40% of Jose Barrios, even if he is 5,500? There's a good enough chance that he just gets run out in the third or the fourth inning that I don't know that I really want 40%, but I definitely want to be, I want to get to some for sure. I think I want to be above 20%.
Jake Nunley coming into the chat saying Barrios just faced Boston and put up 53, Neil, or 43. Sorry, he put up 43 against Boston. I do not care. So you're telling me that he's going to put up exactly 43 again tonight? Like, that seems like a weird thing to say that's predictive. Or also, can we not factor in that now they've seen him and maybe they make adjustments? Or I don't know. There's really nothing that I can mine out of him just putting up 43 last time out.
I assume he's talking about FanDuel.
Yeah, FanDuel.
43 on DraftKings would be okay.
Outrageous. Yeah, that would be like
I don't know if I've seen that.
That's like Kershaw against our Twins.
Yeah, I mean that's a very solid game for Barrios. If he does put up 43 again, you still probably won't need him just on FanDuel, because he is 8,200 and there's enough good pitchers that aren't that much more expensive. So I mean as we said, he has upside, and I don't know. Yeah, it's good to know that he has done it before. I think that is within the range of outcomes still.
Yeah, everybody's just like, it's such an irrelevant thing to me. I'm worried about today, and there could be different lineups, could be a different situation. I don't know how to quantify it. All I know is that yes, I think he's underpriced at 5,500, but so does everybody else, and the ownership's there, and I find it hard to believe that I'm going to land there a lot. But on the other side, I'm going to land on some Boston stacks. That's kind of how this works. You get one of the most popular pitchers on a slate who I personally have never believed in, and I'm probably going to stack up Boston bats on the other side pretty heavily. It's kind of negative leverage, which is surprising to me. So I think people are landing on both sides of this game, but even still, I think there's too much upside in the Boston bats. There's some sources of salary relief that will exist in this lineup if we're not going to see JD Martinez play in Toronto games this season. What are you kind of seeing from the Boston side?
Yeah, I mean, Jose Barrios struggles against lefties, so love Rafael Devers today. Any lefties in the Boston lineup are going to look pretty solid against Barrios. I'm not going to be playing any batters against my pitchers today, so it's going to be only in my non-Barrios lineups. But yeah, I'm definitely going to get to some Boston. Project for 9.1% ownership on DraftKings for the stack. 7.1% top stack odds. They're the top value though, 12.9% of the time. So they're cheap enough in some spots that they can, even though they're not the top stack that often, they are the top value a good amount of the time. So I think that I'll probably come in right around the field on Boston at that 9.1%.
Yeah, I'm with you. And then on the Toronto side, upside confirmed. They're going to be popular too against Eovaldi. Again, this is very strange because the last couple times these two teams have faced, we've had larger slates where you really, really got some positive leverage to roster both sides of it. I don't think it ever really worked out that well, but it's such is life. I would normally want to do that again, but Toronto's going a little bit overowned. I think the top of the lineup, I'll definitely have shares of guys, but I won't be going nuts on the back half of this lineup. What are you kind of seeing here from Toronto?
Yeah, I think I'll probably have more of them as one-offs, and in my secondary stacks, I'm probably not going to get to a ton of Toronto. I'm going to set a cap to make sure that I don't get a ton of Toronto as my primary stack if things stay as they are now, which is 8.5% stack ownership, only a 6.2% chance of being the top stack, 6.1% chance of being the top value. So just based on the top stacks tool, I'm going to want to come in under the field on Toronto as my primary stack, but they do have just enough good power hitters that can put up big numbers without the full stack going off. So I will have some Toronto one-offs. Obviously, Vlad always looks great.
Vlad is good at baseball.
He's a decent player.
Yeah, he's okay. And we should probably have a couple shares of him. Fading Vlad would probably be the most uncomfortable fade on any slate period in baseball.
Yeah, it's something you kind of have to watch, because last year he got up to like 6,000 at one point, 6,200, and you kind of had to force him to get him into some of your lineups just because, he's never going to project that well at 6,200, or at least on a lot of slates, 6,200 is not going to project that well just because it's such a hefty price tag. But so sometimes you need to force him in there a little bit. But yeah, he's a good player to have in your lineups.
I just saw that I was talking and you were taking a drink of water. I need to be better than that. I need to be better. I almost you go to try to come in and talk and
No, it's all
I
good.
could be better than that.
I'm always
that's
ready.
the thing.
I'm ready
I
to
have the
spit up my water on
laptop,
a
I have
moment's
the
notice.
iPad, I have the things, but I have to pay attention to my lovely co-host over there, and I will pay attention to you and make sure that you don't choke on your water here as we talk about the Mets and Cardinals. Fortunately, I don't think I have a whole lot to add from the Cardinals side. Bunch of righties. They have really no lefties, and Max Scherzer just mows down right-handed. Well, he mows down guys from both sides, but specifically righties. He's a freak. He continues to be a freak. Max Scherzer, how do you feel about him on this slate today?
Yeah, he's in a similar boat as Corbin Burns to me, where he looks great. He is the number 2 most likely pitcher on the slate to be a top 2 pitcher on DraftKings at 31.5% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. The ownership is at 48.2%, so he's over-owned based on his top 2 pitcher odds, and he's top 2 value only 15.3% of the time. So, as I said, I'm going to use this tool to basically tell me, yeah, I want to set my cap on all pitchers at 40%, maybe 30%. I don't know. I'll probably set it at 40% though. So I will be under the field on 48.2% owned Max Scherzer. That doesn't mean that I want to get away from him though. He obviously looks great. He's one of the most talented pitchers in baseball. He's also 900 cheaper than Corbin Burns. He's at St. Louis, which isn't a bad spot. So yeah, I want to get to plenty of Max Scherzer, but probably not more than 40% for me.
All right. Yeah, 40%. You're going to land on a lot of 40%, it sounds like today.
Probably.
If you welcome to putting a cap on. I was just answering to somebody in chat there. Who was that I was just saying how to put the cap on there? How do you put a cap? That was Napoleon Mendes da Costa. I couldn't type all of that out in 5 seconds here as I was trying to listen to you once again and be a good co-host. But there you are. That's how you do it. Put that in the chat there for you. Miles Mikolas on the other side here. Once upon a time, maybe rostered this guy. I don't know the last time I did. Terry, I don't think did either. He doesn't really strike out bats. 20.6% K percentage would actually be the highest mark of his career. Didn't debut in the majors until he was 30. That's never a plus. He has a 2.62 expected ERA this season, so maybe decent enough at inducing soft contact and things of that nature here. But this Mets offense is ridiculous, and I think that I want to get to them a lot more. How do you feel about Mikolas on this slate?
Yeah, I mean, he looks fine. He looks good in the top pitchers tool, only projected for 1% ownership. He's a top 2 pitcher 7.9% of the time, top 2 value 7.2% of the time. So, his odds of getting there are better than his ownership right now. So I would like to be above the field on Mikolas. I don't know if I'll force it in there, but I would expect that I'll get to a little bit over the field, at least on the 7,600 Mikolas, even though I agree with you. He's not a great pitcher, only a 7.9% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. Not my favorite pitcher on the slate, doesn't have the same upside as a lot of other pitchers, but at least has a good chance, a better chance of his ownership of being a top 2 pitcher.
You're the pick ass. Single entry. Does ownership matter for pitchers? I believe yes. How do you feel about that, Neil?
Yeah, so I don't really play single entry, but yes, I would think the ownership is even more condensed. Typically
Yes.
in single entry, ownership is more condensed across the board. So if Corbin Burns is 45.7% in big, large fields, which is what the top pitchers tool assumes the largest field tournament, my guess is he'll be 70% in a single entry tournament. So that would be even more reason to get away from him if you think that you see other pitchers that you like better.
Okay. And as the slate gets larger, you have to consider ownership a little bit less just because or a Coors Field slate. There's times when you have to kind of know the outliers that exist on a slate, or if Corbin Burns were the only starter on this, if Max Scherzer and Shane Bieber and those guys didn't exist, you'd have to really weigh out what it was like to roster Max Scherzer, to roster somebody at the top end like a Corbin Burns up against every other pitcher on the board. And, in those kind of instances, I'm more in the jam them kind of situation in a single entry, whereas I think Neil might play the field a little bit more, especially in his 150 you would. But in single entry for me, I definitely am still thinking about ownership. So best of luck to you there. Let's see. We talked about the pitchers here in this one. There's not a whole lot needs to be said about Max Scherzer. He's pretty good. Any St. Louis interest for you at all? You're a sicko. You're going to roster them, aren't you?
Am I going to? Yes, it looks like I will roster a little bit of St. Louis. Probably, I'm not going to play a ton. Like I don't love.
That's a good idea, I think, Neil. Yeah. There's a track record for this Max Scherzer guy. He's all right. He has given up some fly balls once upon a time, but the ball's going to be dead. My God, Max Scherzer, come on now.
Yeah, he's a great pitcher. You don't want to go crazy. I might get to 3% St. Louis might be what I kind of aim for. They're coming in at 1.2% projected ownership. They're the top stack 2.2% of the time, top value 1.9% of the time. So there is positive leverage there. Shit happens in baseball. They could, run Max Scherzer out of the game in the third inning, they could just do a really good job of working the count, and Max Scherzer just might not make it past the fifth inning because he gets to 100 pitches in 5 innings. If they do a good enough job of just, working the count, getting singles here and there, just force him to pitch and pitch and pitch, get to the bullpen. There are ways that they can get to Max Scherzer. So yeah, I'm going to be above the field on St. Louis, but also they are facing Max Scherzer. The most likely outcome is that Max Scherzer pitches, 6-7 innings and they don't really do much damage.
Butho Jenkins likes Cardinals bats today, so enjoy that kiss of death. There's that. I'm just kidding. Good to see you, Butho. We'll give you double dongs at the end of this show. There's no question. We will have that covered for you here. Let's go to the Mets side, because they're my favorite stack on the entire day. Second most leverage. Hard for me to say Colorado, vote of confidence there, but up against Mikolas, this is just a spot that I believe in this offense, and I believe in them long-term. I believe in this Mets team long-term, and I did at the beginning of the season, and I'm not backing down now. You get Nimmo, Marte, Lindor, Pete Alonso, Eduardo Escobar. There are some major league hitters. Robinson Cano, long-term. I don't know if he's going to continue to be anything decent. He is definitely past his prime, but he can still be serviceable. And Jeff McNeil does not strike out and will eventually have some power here. I feel really good about this Mets offense going up against Mikolas. I think it's, not a spot where we're seeing many good game environments. You see wind blowing out to right field here. It's 60 degrees in St. Louis, which is kind of the norm for every ballpark, except for Anaheim. It's hot as shit out here in LA. But how are you feeling about this Mets offense? Are you as bullish as I am?
You know that I am. Coming in at 2.6% projected ownership for the stack, 6.7% top stack odds, 3.6% top value stack odds. Yeah, they're the second best leverage spot on the slate. So I am going to be going over the field a good amount on the Mets, maybe even up to like 10%.
Oh, God, I love hearing that, because I'm definitely north of 10%. I will be 5X plus the field. Feel pretty good about it. Favorite hitter from this lineup, hard not to be Lindor. Second favorite, hard not to be Marte, but they are expensive as all heck. Might have to throw in some Barrios shares or something of that nature to make that work. Or my other cheapie that I have later on here in the show. Anything else from this game for you, Neil?
No, I think we covered it.
All right, let's talk Oddshopper. We got 3 games left to go. We should be able to easily cover that here in 13 minutes, and we will be on our way and make way for the NBA show. You're going to want to check those out. It's going to be a blast. But you should also check out Oddshopper while you're at it here. Oddshopper, the best place to go to find your bets in 30 seconds or less. NBA bets, MLB bets coming soon, coming very, very soon. They're listed up on the page, but we don't have any of the data from the team here at Awesemo uploaded onto Oddshopper here for you yet. NHL bets, those have been a print fest. I feel like I've seen News God post an NHL bet. I don't know what News God knows about NHL, probably about as much as me. Not a whole heck of a lot, but I tell you what, he is really good at making money making those bets. You want to look at the top of the board of NHL bets and now golf bets. These have been a blast. I don't know. Hit another outright last week. It wasn't that hard. Patrick Cantley, Xander Schauffele only paid out 8-1, but you know what? I was happy about it. Sam Burns almost got there for me as well. That team, him and Billy Ho, that would have been great too, but nice to have my 2 major outrights I took a stand on go 1-2. They showed pretty well on the Oddshopper golf bets as well. If you want to have the best opportunity to make money in any sport that you desire, go to Oddshopper, check out some of those values, stop guessing, start winning, and join us at Awesemo with the tools here. But some of them are just plastered onto the page for you to easily see on Oddshopper. Check it out. I'm telling you, it's just an absolute print fest. Also a print fest is Kyle Tucker, circa 2021, which brings us to Houston, -133 at Texas, 8 total runs in this one. Framber Valdez, the extreme ground ball pitcher of planet Earth. He had over a 70% ground ball rate in the year of our Lord 2021. That is an outrageous, and I do mean an outrageous statistic. Doesn't miss a lot of bats, so harder to really have tons of utility. But I think on FanDuel, against this Texas lineup, maybe there's some extra strikeouts. And I definitely think 6 innings could be in store where you get that bonus. I like him quite a bit for FanDuel today. DraftKings SB2, he falls in that wonky mid-range. How do you feel about Framber Valdez today, my friend?
Yeah, I think he looks fine. I'm not going to get to a ton of Framber Valdez. Coming in at 8.8% ownership. I just refreshed this. Now he's a top 2 pitcher 11.8% of the time. So he does have some positive leverage going up against Texas. He's only a top 2 value 7.1% of the time. So a little bit of negative leverage there. He's not somebody that I'm going to force into my lineups. He's probably somebody that I'm just going to let Fantasy Cruncher give me what they give me. But if I was hand building, he's not one of the first guys that's going to go into my lineup. It would probably be my 10th lineup before I got to Framber Valdez. He'd probably be one of my first 10 lineups, but he's not somebody that I love on this slate. 8,400, as you mentioned, he just doesn't have the upside that some of the other pitchers here do. Walker Buehler is only 400 more, and is actually coming in at lower ownership than Framber Valdez, if I'm reading this right. Yeah, that's wild to me. So I'd rather go to Walker Buehler, get up that extra 400, then go to Framber Valdez if I'm hand building. But yeah, in a set of 150, I'll probably just take whatever Fantasy Cruncher gives me.
And on the Texas side, it sounds like we both like to live dangerously. Dane Dunning, 23% K percentage. That's decent enough down there at the cheap end. I'm not playing him on FanDuel, but I tell you what, he will be an SP2 for me on DraftKings.com. Almost 9% top two pitcher percentage. I like him. I like Framber Valdez if there's going to be a little bit of positive leverage for him. I definitely like Walker Buehler. I like a lot of these guys going under owned, and I'm assuming you do too, my friend.
I do. Yeah. Dane Dunning. So he is more expensive than Kyle Freeland. So he does need to outperform Kyle Freeland. But he's only 200 more than Kyle Freeland and doesn't need to outperform him that much to make him optimal. Mm-hmm. He still doesn't need to put up a huge outing to potentially be optimal on this slate. Coming in at 4.1% ownership, but a top two pitcher 8.2% of the time, top two value 26.4% of the time. So just the savings at 5,200 allow you to do so much more with your lineups that he has a 26.4% chance of being one of the top two values. That is really solid. Give me some Dane Dunning, even though he is facing the Astros at Texas. It's not the best spot for him. Just cheap enough that he allows you to do a lot with your lineups.
Yeah, I'll still have Houston. Don't get me wrong. And we just got the lineup. I love when this happens. It's been a while since it has. McCormick is leading off. Pena batting ninth. What is going on? He was leading off. Now he's batting ninth with McCormick leading off. That just pisses me off because I bet Pena to win Rookie of the Year here. And one of the main reasons was he got upgraded to the leadoff spot, so all his surface numbers are going to look better. Well, not if he's back to batting ninth out of the middle of nowhere. Elenimus Diaz is in that lineup. Castro, catcher. So Jason Castro, you're getting from the left side here up against Dane Dunning. I don't like that as much. Martin Maldonado, I mean, we know Castro from the Twins days. Hasn't been the best hitter in recent years, but Martin Maldonado, he basically has gotten the Yadier Molina treatment. I was joking about that earlier on the previous show. Jason Castro, though, in that lineup here. What sticks out to you from Houston today?
I'm going to want to play some Houston. They're coming in at negative leverage in the top stacks tool. They are owned 11.9% of the time, but the top stack only 10.7% of the time. Top value 11.6% of the time. We'll see. This might change now that the ownership, that the lineup has come out. We'll see how things switch around with a change to the batting order. Sometimes that does make a difference. But currently they have slight negative leverage. If they end up having slight negative leverage, I'm not going to full fade Houston. It's actually rare that they have negative leverage. It seems like they are always one of the more positive leverage stacks on the slate, just because I think people hate them and don't want to play them is the reason they come in at positive leverage all the time. I'm not sure what it is, but maybe people have finally caught on and now they are coming in at near 12% ownership. So yeah, I'll get to some Houston. They're not massively negative leverage. I'll probably try to get to about 10, 11% if things stay as they are now.
Yeah, when I'm hand building stuff in single entry or like in the $15 on DK, I feel like Kyle Tucker, Yordan Alvarez end up in all of those lineups. Like for the last year and a half, it's just been clicking their names constantly. And Kyle Tucker batting sixth, that's always a good thing because it seems to reduce his ownership. Not today, 16.6% ownership that's going there. That's not going to be ideal. Might have to temper expectations, but I'm never fading my guy. It's just like roulette. You want to hit your numbers, my friend. You want to hit your numbers. Kyle Tucker is that number for me. Red 19. Let's go to the Texas side here. How do they kind of look for you on this slate?
Yeah, so Texas actually has some positive leverage, especially when you look at the top value odds. So it's 4.5% projected ownership, 5% top stack odds, 9.6% top value. So that is a stack that I'm going to want to be over the field on, maybe try to get to 8% or so. Just a really solid spot relative to their ownership. Framber Valdez is a solid real life pitcher, and he doesn't allow a lot of fly balls, so you don't love that, but who knows if they're going to be able to get to him early, get to a bullpen game. I think they have some chance there. So yeah, I definitely have some interest in the Texas bats here.
Yeah, I'm probably going to be writing them off for the most part, but I totally get it. Positive leverage to be had. Simeon up to 12% ownership. He's been really bad in the early going, but now down to 4,200 on DK. I think it might just be a team that's tougher for me to get to, even on a 7-gamer. I get it, though. Framber Valdez, a good real-life pitcher. We just talked about that. Let's go to Cleveland, LA. Jordan Klein bullying me in chat per usual, so we'll get it moving. 2 games to go. Shane Bieber going up against the Los Angeles Angels. Really good pitcher, really good top of the old lineup there for the Los Angeles Angels. 4 implied total, though, for both teams. So not like Shane Bieber's expected to have the 2.9 implied run total, which, again, it's 1.1 runs difference. But Shane Bieber, 27.6% K percentage. Maybe he doesn't have the ceiling that he normally would have going up against Burns and Scherzer, just in talking about that in reality. Only 86 pitches he's been topped out at. I doubt he pitches over 90 in any capacity. Maybe he can mow him down like he did Chicago. In the last time out, 86 pitches, 7 Ks, 27.1 DraftKings points. How do you view Shane Bieber on today's slate?
Yeah, he looks really solid. Coming in at 20.7% ownership, 24.9% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, only 9.5% chance of being a top 2 value. You don't love that. But outside of the top of the order, the Angels lineup is just not that great, not that scary. So if he can just get through Trout, Ohtani, Rendon, I think that he's got a pretty good shot at having a really good outing here. So I'm definitely going to be taking some shots on Shane Bieber, probably come above the field. My guess is that I'll get up to that 40% number, getting above the field on Bieber.
On the other side, you got Angels positive leverage. So let's just do that. Angels, yeah. We should play some of them too, right?
Yeah, we should definitely play some Angels as well. Always love playing the Angels. Coming in at 4.8% projected ownership, 6.5% top stack odds. That looks really solid. Only 2.6% chance of being the top value, but that's because their high-end bats are very high-end bats, and I don't really mind that. So yeah, my expectation is that I will get above the field on the Angels, maybe get up to 8 or 9%.
And now insert your Michael Lorenzen jokes where Eric, calls him a good hitter pitcher, because that's what he was. He played some outfield for the Cincinnati Reds once upon a time, and in my home league, that had a ton of utility because you just got those free at bats in head-to-head leagues. So he was the bullpen arm you wanted. Well, Shohei Ohtani, the best hitting pitcher in baseball. Let's be serious. But Michael Lorenzen, not the worst. Who cares? We're worried about his pitching today. He's been decent so far this year. Bullpen turned into starter here. How do you feel about Michael Lorenzen, another guy? Put him in the bucket of all the positive leverage guys to roster on DK today?
Yeah, I think he's a wide range of outcomes type of guy. So
sure does.
In this case, I'd like to play plenty of Lorenzen, and I would also like to play plenty of the Guardians against him. So he's just speaking about him coming in at 3.5% projected ownership, 9.3% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, 17.3% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher. I would like to get above the field at 3.5% on Michael Lorenzen, just because the range of outcomes is there and people are not accounting for that in the ownership. So yeah, I'd like to get probably 5% or more of Michael Lorenzen at 6,300.
Last game of the day, Dodgers, Arizona. It's Bueller's Day on. So there you go. I haven't used that one.
That was
before.
Good. That was really good.
Thank you. I felt good about that. I didn't even use it this morning. Just kept it in the arsenal. Well, Bueller's Day on, 8,800 on DK, positive leverage. I'm expecting positive things in his future. It has not looked good, but it could look good against Arizona, considering his first 3 matchups. Colorado in Coors, Cincinnati at home. That's a good one. He pitched fantastic for the most part. 98 pitches. Didn't really strike anybody out, only 4 Ks, 12 fantasy points. Okay, didn't pitch fantastic by any means. But then you pitch against Atlanta, you're going to give up earned runs. It's fine. Walker Buehler, yay or nay?
Yay. Coming in at 5.6% projected ownership, 13.9% chance of being a top 2 pitcher, 7.2% chance of being a top 2 value. I definitely have some interest in Walker Buehler here. I will be above the field. He's one that I would probably force it in if Fantasy Cruncher doesn't give it to me. I think that Fantasy Cruncher will give it to me, but if not, I will definitely force it to give me more than the field on Walker Buehler.
X gonna give it to you. I don't know why that's what came to my mind, but it is. I just say what comes to my mind. It's word vomit. Merrill Kelly on the other side. He's seen some drastic improvement this season to his K percentage. You think that this is going to be good long-term. Dodgers offense, is the most scary place that you could possibly find out if you're for real or not. I don't know what to make of it. Merrill Kelly, I think, is a decent enough pitcher. I know why the Dodgers are getting as much ownership as what they were earlier in the day. Now they are the most owned team on the entire board. Still 19.7% ownership share. I find them impossible not to have some shares of, but my God, it would be a scary fade here today. What do you plan to do with these Dodgers bats?
Yeah, so I'll be under the field on the Dodgers bats. Like you said, they are highly negative leverage, 20% projected ownership, 15% chance of being a top stack, 6.6% chance of being a top value stack. So nothing good there, except for that 15% chance of being the top stack is the highest odds on the slate. So negative leverage, but still the likeliest team to be the top stack. I will be under the field just due to the high ownership, but I'm not going to full fade them. They are the Dodgers. They are facing Merrill Kelly, who does not scare me. I'll probably try to get to, maybe 10, 12%.
And rounding it out with the Arizona bats going up against Walker Buehler, flat leverage, maybe some shares of them. I might build them in a single entry team, actually, because it's just a team that has some pop at the top of this lineup. Sure, Buehler, I never know what to make with early season struggles to know if it's going to be sustained like Carrasco last year, or you get the Carrasco this year. You just kind of never know. What sticks out to you from the Arizona side to round it out?
Yeah, they look really solid. 4.1% protected ownership, 4.5% chance to be in the top stack, and 11.3% chance to be in the top value stack. Those are really solid numbers. Even though I want to get some Walker Buehler for sure, I'm definitely also going to get to some Arizona lineups stacks in my non-Buehler lineups.
Neil Orfield getting in underneath the clock. I got to get the dong pick for the way out. I don't want one dong. I want a double dong.
There is no nudity in my contract. Who is double donging today?
How do you think I got hired? Wait, what? No, I was kidding.
That's funny. I'm going to go with Jose Ramirez.
Jose Ramirez. Well, take the guy just slaughtering baseballs against Lorenzen. I don't mind that. I'm going to get off the board here for you. Mike Trout. No, I was kidding. I'm going to go. I don't want to do Castellanos. I'm going to go Starling Marte. Starling Marte, double dong. Again, he's speed, power, upside. He's going to steal a base and hit 2 homers because, just put him up for 40 fantasy points today. No, I don't care. He's going to have a good game, though, against Mikolas. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in to the Live Before Lock show. Don't go anywhere on the Awesemo channel, though. We have the NBA Deeper Dive in Live Before Lock, which I know has Adam. I know it's got our friend Josh. That's going to be a fun one to check out. But Adam and Jordan on the next one. Or no, that's Greg and Adam. Of course, Jordan's not on it. Jordan's just yelling at me and owning real estate in my head. Let's get on out of here. Neil, any final words for the people?
You're going to tell me what the movie quote is from?
Step Brothers. We're out of here. Have a good one. We'll see ya.